take days or possibly even weeks to know the winner. How perilous could that time be for the country?
We will have, and we already are in, because of the president's pronouncements and rhetoric and what he is doing to suppress voters in this election, that we are in a constitutional crisis already, and that can become very dire in the coming days. Because let's everybody here take a deep breath and really look at what Donald Trump's so-called election strategy is. His strategy is a coup. He is attempting a coup by undermining the very electoral system in our country through voter suppression, through trying to denigrate and demean and intimidate voters. And his strategy, which he has announced himself, is to not allow an honest count, to say that this is a rigged election, to call on all kinds of spurious measures, use the courts, use poll watchers who are videotaping and intimidating voters, to throw everything he can to try and reduce the number of ballots cast by Democratic voters and increase the number of Republican ballots cast. We've never seen anything like this in our history. We've never had a president of the United States try to undermine the very casting of votes. And on top of that, you just look at the evidence, for instance, of the Postal Service at his Postmaster General's beck and call. And he could not even get the ballots to be counted and put on the trucks in such a way that there would be expeditious counting of the ballots because of an undermining attempt. It's like letting the air out of the tires of those Postal Service trucks so people will be disenfranchised. We haven't seen anything like this since Dixiecrats, Democratic Southerner segregationists tried to keep black people from voting in this country for half a century.
Well,
this is unprecedented. It is a constitutional crisis.
We are seeing a response from the American people who are trying to take back their democracy with these record early voting turnout numbers from states like Texas to North Carolina to Pennsylvania and so forth. David, we do know the president's path is narrower than Biden's, but there still is a path for him to win. We all know what happened in 2016 when Hillary Clinton didn't spend the time in those Rust Belt states, and some of the state polls in particular ended up being wrong. President Trump's campaign is touting a ground game like no other. They believe that could be underestimated this time around. What do you think?
I think there are hidden Trump voters still, just as there were last time, but I think there are a lot fewer than there were before. And I don't think their ground game has been all that effective. I think what's happened is instead is we've had an avalanche of voters who are coming out spontaneously. I think there's something, Carl is right. There is a very dark threat to democracy in this election, and we're going to have to fight it every step of the way. But I think on the other side of that, is in fact that a lot of Americans are doing just that. They're fighting back by going out to the polls, and they're doing it in droves. People are getting on airplanes and going home. Because it's so important to them to get Trump out for the most part. There are some Trump supporters now, but for the most part, some people we're seeing stand up at the polls, they are in effect anti-Trump voters. They're not drawn to Biden so much as they're so anti-Trump and they want this over. They're exhausted. People are exhausted of all of this emotionally. I do think that there's some good news for democracy. We'll get this many people out, 90 million, 100 million, before the voting even starts on Tuesday. I think that's good news for the country. And